Good day, grade 8 learners. Today, we're gonna discuss about Module 8, linear equations, its forms, graphs, and trends. Now, we're gonna discuss Lesson 3, describe the graph of a linear equation in terms of its intercepts and slope. What I need to know. At the end of the lesson, you are expected to determine the slope and the x and y intercept of the graph. Describe the trend of the graph. What's in? Take note, slope is the steepness of the line or the rise over run. An x-intercept is a point on the graph where y is equal to 0 and y-intercept is a point in the graph where x is 0. What's new? So this time we're gonna graph the following points. So we have here number 1, 2, the ordered pairs 2, 0, and 0, 5. Number 2, negative 5, 0, and 0, negative 2. Number 3, negative 2, 1, and negative 2, negative 1. Number 4, we have negative 2, 3, and 2, 3. This time, we're gonna plot all of these points in the rectangular coordinate plane. And let's see what kind of graph or the trend of the graph. So let's have number 1, 2, 0, and 0, 5. So since 2 is positive, so we need to move to the right. So it's here is 2. And then since the y doesn't have any value, it's only 0. So arira siya sa 2 ang ato ang point. Then the next point is 0, 5. So the next is 0, 5. So wala tayong value sa x-axis. So ato to sa y-axis. Since it's positive, so we're going up. And it is here the 5. So the next thing that we are going to do is to connect. Connect na to sila. So we will be able to have that line. So that is for number 1. And this time we're gonna connect number 2. So we will have here, we will plot number 2, negative 5, 0. So the negative 5 is here for the x. And the 0, since wala may value, so ari natas magtungod sa x-axis, so which is negative 5. So that's the point. And then, for the next one is 0, negative 2. So, since negative man ang ato ang y, or the ordinate, so we're going down. 0, negative 2. Then same goes with number 1. We're going to connect the line. So that's for negative 2. Just make sure when you are the one connecting the points, it should be a straight line, alright? For number 3, we have here negative 2 and 1. So negative 2, our abscissa is negative 2, so we're going to the left. So it's 2. And since there is a value of the ordinate, which is 1, so we're going up. Since 1 is positive. So diri ang ato ang first point. Nakaplot atong first point. Then, which will be followed by negative 2 and negative 1. So, since negative 2 is a positive, is a negative, so it's still going to the left. And then, since 1 is negative, so we're going down. So, here's the second point. And after that, we're going to connect the 2 points in which, as you can see, we will be able to have a straight line. Yes, so just a straight line. Now, we're gonna have the fourth point. So, let's graph the following. Negative 2 and 3. So, same, since 2 is negative, so we're going to the left. And then going up to 3, since 3 is positive. So here is the point, right? And next is 2 and positive 2 and positive 3. So we're going to the right this time since 2 is positive. Then from there, since na-value ato ang y, so we're going also up. Alright. And then, we connect the lines and we will be able to form a horizontal line. Yes. So this time, we were able to have these 4 graphs. So, what can you say about the trend of the graph of the following? Are they going down, going up, vertical, or horizontal? So, by plotting these points, so how did we describe the graph? So, aside from these points also, are there any ways on how to plot and graph the points or the equation? So, let's find out. What is it? This time, let us graph the given points and describe the trend of the graph. So we are going to apply all the knowledge that we had learned from the previous modules. So let's have this example number 1. Graph the points 2, 0, and 0, 5. Identify the x and y intercepts. Describe the trend of the graph. So there are 3 things that we're going to do. First is the graph. Second is to identify the x and y intercept. And the third is to describe the trend of the graph. So this time, the first step that we're going to do is to plot the points. So we have here 0 and 5. Yes, 0, 5. Or we can either plot bisag asara nila 2, 0 or 0, 5 kinsay mag-una. So this time mauna na to si 0, 5. So as you can see, walay value si x. So ang atuang pagdagan-dagan kay magikan sa origin. So since 5 is positive, so we're going up. So that's why we have here the 5. Ato ang point. And then we have 2, 0 since the value of x is 2. So ato ta sa, and it's positive, so we're going to the right. So we have to move 2 points going to the right. So we have here 2. And then our y or the ordinate is 0. So as is rata sa ato ang x-axis. And then we have to connect. So that's why we were able to have this line. Alright? So we're done with the first task is to graph the points, right? And this time, we're gonna identify the x and y intercepts. So bisag dili pa nato i-graph, kay makahibaw na ta unsa ang x-intercept o y-intercept. But based on the graph, the x-intercept is 2, so here, and the y-intercept is 5. So just take note, bisag di pa nato i-graph, makahibaw ra gihapon ta sa x and y intercept because as we discussed in the previous module or previous lesson, na x-intercept is a point in the graph in which y is equal to 0, and the y-intercept is the point on the graph in which x is equal to 0. So just to be sure sa x and y intercept, we just have to graph. Alright? So that's for the second task. So after knowing the x and y intercept, this time we will now be able to determine the slope of the line using the formula m is equal to rise over run. So based sa ato ang graph ganina, so we were able to plot the point 0, 5 and 2, 0, right? So in this case, para makahibaw ta sa ato ang slope, gamito na to ang formula nga m is equal to rise over run. So here, gikan diri sa ubos sa 2, 0, musakat ta, since positive man ang musakat ta kay ang ikaduha nga points kay diri man. Kay rise over run man, wala man giingon nga run over rise. So rise over run, so we need to rise hangtod maabot ta sa point sa 0, 5. So let's have it. So from 2, 0, musaka tag 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that's for the rise. And this time, we have to count the number of times we going left na sad ta. Kay padung man tas point sa 0.5. So, ato ang iphon gikan diri 1, 2. So therefore, based sa ato ang pag-ihap, we were able to have the rise as 5 and our run is 2. And take note, since pa-left man siya, therefore, it is negative. So in this case, we were able to have our slope, which is m is equal to 5 over negative 2, or negative 5 halves, because a positive divided by a negative is always a negative. So in this case, since it's negative 5 over 2 man, so pwede ang ato ang rise kay negative 5, right? So pwede siya ang rise dili tanan pasaka, pwede siya paubos since negative man ang rise, so pa down siya. So mag-ihap ta og pa down gikan diri sa tong point sa 0.5 paubos. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So from there, mudaga na sad ta padung sa, this time padung ta siya sa point sa 2, 0. So padung ta sa right. So 1, 2. 2 ra gihapon. So in this case, we were able to have negative 5 as our rise and our run is positive 2. In which pariha ra gihapon siya, negative 5 divided by 2 is still a negative 5 over 2. Or negative 2 divided by 5 is still a negative 5 over 2. Alright, so since the slope is negative, as you can see, the slope is negative, the graph of the line is falling. So falling siya and decreasing from left to right. So pag slant siya from left to right. So mauna ang iyahang trend. Kung pangutan-on mo unsa ang trend, mauna siya decreasing from left to right, since the slope is negative. So I hope you were able to get it. Now let's have this example number 2. Given the graph, determine the slope and x and y intercepts and the trend of the line. So we have to determine the slope, the x and y intercepts, and the trend of the line, just given this graph. And take note that we have learned that the x-intercept is the point in the graph where y is equal to 0. And using the graph here, the x-intercept is 5, or in ordered pair 5, 0. And on the other hand, the y-intercept is the point on the graph where x is equal to 0. Therefore, the y-intercept is negative 2 or 0, negative 2. Find the slope, in which we're going to use the formula m is equal to rise over run. Alright, so how are we going to do this? Using the graph. So based on the graph, we just have to count up from the point 0, 2, yes, and to the right to reach the point 5, 0. Because padung man ta sa a point nga 5, 0. So saka ta mo count tag pababaw nga tungod sa 0, negative 2 ug tungod sa 5, 0 nga ordered pair. So let's count 1, 2. So from there, that's the rise, which is 2. And we have to run padung sa 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in this case, since padung man siya sa right, so it's positive. Therefore, our slope is 2 over 5. Okay? So, we can also count down padung sa ubos para gikan sa 5, 0, padung sa 0, negative 2. Pwede sad na siya. And let's see if they will still have the same slope. So, from 5, 0, we will count going sa tungod sa 0, 2. So, 1, 2. Since paubos man siya, so it means it's negative. So, our rise is negative 2 and our run is going to the left. Kay, padung man ta sa 0, negative 2. So, from this point, mo count ta og padung sa 0, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And since it's going to the left, so therefore, we will have negative 5. And take note, negative 2 divided by negative 5, the answer will always be positive. So, in this case, makakonclude di ay ta that same ra bisag isa padung pababaw, padung pa di ay pababaw or padung sa ubos ato pag-count sa slope, still they will have the same slope. And we can conclude that our slope is equal to 2 over 5. And our line is increasing. Okay? Our line, since the slope is positive, so our line is increasing from left to the right. Pasaka siya. Okay, so that is the trend of the graph, increasing from left to right. Now, let's have example number 3. Given the equation x is equal to negative 2, determine the slope, x and y intercepts, and the trend of the line. So, this is the line. As you can see, it's vertical, no? So, na siya sa point, na ay point niya is negative 2, 0. So, in this case, makita nato nga wala siya movement from nga sideward. It's only up and down. Wala na ilain. So, in this case, therefore, ang iyahang y-intercept is, wala siya y-intercept. Kay puros naman siya up and down. Naara siya sa x-axis nagtungod. So, wala siya y-intercept. But for the x-intercept, we will be able to get negative 2. Our x-intercept is negative 2. Kay naaman siya diri nga point. Iyahang ni-pass through man siya sa negative 2, 0. And take note, since ang take note kay lagi puros naman siya up and down ang iyahang movement, therefore the rise is 2 or any number, right? But wala man tay run. Therefore, take note that a fraction to a number divided by 0, the answer is undefined. So, therefore, as the slope of the line, in this case, the slope of the vertical line is undefined. And the trend of the line is vertical. Now, let's have this example 4. Given the equation y is equal to 3, determine the slope, the x and y intercepts, and the trend of the line. So, the first thing that we are going to do is to look at the graph. So, as you can see, the graph is in horizontal form. And since our y is 3 man, therefore, it means we have the ordered pair 0, 0, and positive 3. Since y is 3 man. So, that's why we got here the point 0, 3. And since horizontal man siya, so bisag unsa pa atong point, asa ta magkuha og points ani nga line, pariha ra gihapon siya og y-intercept. Therefore, our x-intercept is 0 and the y-intercept is 3. And with regards to the slope, so in finding the slope, we know that if given a graph, we will just have the formula m is equal to rise over run. However, in this case, we cannot have a rise. Wala tay rise, kay puros raman siya sideward, wala man siya vertical. So, it means that the rise is 0. And for the run, we can have the run which is 3. So, our 0, it will now become 0 over 3 or 0 divided by 3. And take note that any number, if the numerator is 0 and the denominator is non-zero, the answer will always be 0. So therefore, our slope for a horizontal line is 0 and the trend of the line is horizontal. So that is for the equation y equals 3. Alright, so that's it for the trend of the line. And now, let's check your understanding by answering these activities. What's more, answer the activity below to solidify your understanding and skills of the topic. Activity 1.4, directions. Given the graphs below, find the x-intercept, the y-intercept, the slope, and the trend. Take note, you have to find the x and y-intercept, the slope, and the trend. So we have here number 1, number 2, number 3, and also number 4. Alright, so that's it. So only 4 items that you have to answer. So, and take note, you have to remember the following as you answer those activities. So, the value of the slope m tells the trend of the graph. So, if m is positive, then the graph is increasing from left to right. If m is negative, then the graph is decreasing from left to right. If m is 0, then the graph is horizontal or a horizontal line. So if m is undefined, then the graph is a vertical line. And take note that x-intercept is a point on the graph where y is equal to 0. And y-intercept is a point on the graph where x is 0. So that's it for this lesson and at the same time for this module. So I'll be leaving you with this quotation from an unknown author. He or she said, "Good mathematics is not about how many answers you know. It's how you behave when you don't know." So I hope that even though you find it difficult to answer, but still, I hope you will be trying your best and please do not cheat. So I So that's it for today's lesson, and I hope you learned something from this module.